Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about my fitness journey and how I went from suffering from eating disorders into recovery and finding happiness and healthiness in my lifestyle. So I will be covering some somewhat sensitive topics today. So if that could be a trigger for you, maybe click out, but that's just, a warning in advance. So let's get on into it. I would say I was probably in about 7th grade when I started, my body was changing. I started to feel very uncomfortable in my skin. And it was around this time that I started noticing what people looked like. I would say before that, I didn't really care, what I looked like, what people looked like. I was a huge tomboy at the time. And I would say it was around 7th grade when I started going through puberty, and started kind of looking around and being like, ooh, I could kind of get into makeup or actually want to wear dresses, look cute. And so I started to care more about what boys thought or, different things like that. And it was shortly into my 7th grade year and something happened, and basically I had picked out an outfit for my sister to wear to school, and when she got home, she was very proud of the outfit. I was proud of the outfit. I thought she looked great, and she asked my dad what he thought of the outfit, and for whatever reason, he was in a really bad mood, and he basically said that she should unzip. It was like a full zip jacket, and he said that she should unzip the jacket because it'd be more flattering, or she wouldn't look as fat, or something. And I've never actually talked about it with her, so I don't know if it was as crushing to her as it was to me. But because I had picked out that outfit, I just felt devastated for her. And it was from that point on that I started living, I would say, in a state of fear and a fear of judgment. And I think that was what really triggered it, because after that, it was like all I wanted to focus on was being as thin as possible. So that was when my anorexia kind of took hold. And so I did suffer from both anorexia and bulimia, but the bulimia came a bit later on. So it was right after this kind of event that my anorexia really just took hold, and I went from being, kind of happy and healthy and whatnot to just really trying to lose as much weight as possible. And I remember, I can still to this day tell you, I ate the exact same thing every day. It was so restrictive. And I would also work out before school, and I was doing so many activities because I was a super athletic, active kid. So I was in all the activities. I mean, I was swimming 3 hours a day and then going to soccer practice for a couple hours. And I was on 2 different soccer teams. So I was by no means fat. I was very fit. But I just was so afraid of gaining weight. And so I just spiraled. And it got to the point that I was barely functioning. And so I kind of had a bit of a scare. It was, probably 6 months in or so, I had a bit of a scare where I started getting really dizzy, and I basically passed out in the pool. And it was just I kind of had this realization that I'm not sustaining my body. So I started eating a bit more, but it was still very, very restrictive. And I would keep a diary of everything that I ate, and I would put good or bad next to the food. So if I thought that it was bad, I'd put bad next to it, do not eat. And I just kind of tracked everything. I'd write the calories. It got to the point that I didn't need to write the calories because I just knew. And it was just super unhealthy, but I just knew I had to eat something if I wanted to continue performing at sports. So I would say 8th grade, I wasn't as restrictive as 7th grade, because 7th grade got really bad, but I was still monitoring. I was working out late into the night. If I felt like I had had a bad day, I would do just insane exercises, you know, all through the night of just like crunches, push-ups, just anything that I could do, leg lifts, just so that I felt like I was like working off the calories. So that kind of mindset was going through all the way through 8th grade. And then I was trying out for the soccer team the summer after 8th grade for high school. So that summer I also went to a 6-week sleepaway camp. And so I wasn't able to train with the team all summer. And obviously these are new coaches, they don't really know you, you know, all of that. And so all they knew of me is that I showed up at the beginning of the summer, showed up at the end of the summer for tryouts, but I wasn't there in the middle. And obviously they knew that I had been away at camp, but there were girls that were there all summer training, working really hard. And so I ended up getting cut. And I was absolutely devastated. And after this, I just kind of spiraled. I quit all my sports. I wanted nothing to do with physical activity. I just became completely just laying around, just so depressed. And I just started binge eating. And to go from super restrictive eating to binge eating, I put on so much weight. I probably put on close to 30 pounds. And the more that I put on, the more depressed I got and the more I ate. And at some point I just was like, I don't want to be fat though, because I had this fear of, you know, being fat. And so I started purging, and that was when the bulimia kind of came in. And so that really took hold you know, during my freshman year and carried on through the majority of my high school. So finally, it was the end of sophomore year-ish, and this had been, you know, about 1.5 years at that point of just constant purging. I had also started, instead of binging, I would just starvation purge. So it was like starvation binge purge. And so at that point I would rarely binge though. I would just purge anything that I ate. So at that point I was so physically and mentally exhausted, and one day I just had this mental breakdown. And basically it was absolutely absurd in hindsight, but my sister and I shared a car, and basically I wanted to take the car and go home after school because I was just so depressed at that time, and I just had enough of whatever happened that day. And she would not give me the car keys because she had some after school activities. And I lost my mind. I started screaming at her in the halls. I called her every profane name under the sun, just really, really horrible. And I kind of got home and was sobbing, and I had this out of body experience where it was like me looking at me, and I just had this realization that something needed to change. And it was actually that evening that my best friend, we weren't as close at the time, but we went to the same church, and she texted me and said, "Hey, don't know what you're doing tonight. Do you want to come to Bible study with me?" And so I was raised in a Christian home, and I kind of took that as a sign that, you know, maybe that was where I needed to be. So I started going to church with her and going to the Bible study, and just having that camaraderie and being around really positive spiritual people who, you know, really put their, you know, faith and whole heart into the Lord. And being around that was just so therapeutic for me. So I started to, I wouldn't say I got better, but I started to make some changes and see some changes. So I was still, you know, kind of fighting with my internal demons, but I started to see some hope, and the depression started to lift a little bit. So I was in kind of a neutral space. I guess I would say through my junior year. And then, so it was like, I was still purging, but it wasn't as bad. I wasn't restricting quite as much. And I was really trying to make a change. So, you know, I would sit and just try my hardest to keep the food down. And sometimes I was able to, and sometimes I wasn't. But because I wasn't so restrictive, I did put on a bit of weight. And then my senior year is when things kind of started to change, and my parents got me a personal trainer and nutritionist to kind of help me along the journey. And so that was when things really changed, because I had always been active through sports. I'd never been like lifestyle active, I guess. It had never been like, fitness was never a lifestyle. It was, I don't know, just sports, and you know, it was always through those kind of activities. So this was the first time I had really lifted to build certain muscle groups and to shape your body, things like that. And you know, she really taught me kind of how to eat properly and the proper things to eat to help feed your body and fuel your body. And you know, I can say that eating healthy now, knowing, you know, more about like your microbiome and your gut, like having positive gut bacteria and things like that, I can now see why that had such a positive effect on me. So my senior year, I was actually by the end in a pretty positive place. I lost a lot of weight. I was looking good. I was working out consistently. I was eating healthy. And I just felt good. And so by the end of my senior year, I had opened up to a few of my really close girlfriends just about the struggles that I'd been having. And they were all so loving and so supportive. And so that was just such a positive experience for me. Now, you know, I had the best summer ever. Senior summer, I think we can all relate, is just amazing. You just, you know, with your friends that one last time before you all go off into the next adventure. And so I just had the best summer. And then I went into school, and I just went off the rails, I would say, from an eating perspective. So because I was feeling in a better place, I wasn't as restrictive, and I also started drinking. So I never drank through high school. I was like, you know, very straight-laced, all this, and went into college. And because I got a full ride scholarship to school, I was living in a scholarship house. So I was living with 60 individuals, and we all had the same scholarship. And so that's freshman through senior. So the one thing with that, though, is that obviously juniors and seniors are, you know, primarily of age, and then you have freshmen and sophomore living there. And I also went to a big state school, so partying and binge drinking were a part of the culture. And so I kind of fell into that trap and started binge drinking and partying. And then when you're, you know, drinking, you're eating all sorts of crap. And so, you know, I just started spiraling, and I got to the point where I could not even get out of bed because I was so exhausted. And this wasn't like a hangover. It wasn't like, now looking back, I probably had adrenal fatigue if I had to self-diagnose. Just like, I was just exhausted all the time. So, you know, I would set an alarm, I'd wake up for class, go to class, come back, sleep, go to class again, come back, sleep. It was like any time that I could be sleeping, I was sleeping. So I was in this really bad place, and I came home for Christmas, and my mom was like, you know, you're not looking very healthy. And she was like, I think you should start taking some vitamins and getting the proper trying to get the proper nutrients. And so I started taking vitamins, and so that was number one, to kind of try to get me on track. Oh, also, throughout this entire time, I had kind of spiraled back down into my bulimia because I was getting so much anxiety about how much I was drinking and the calories that I was drinking and then the crap that I was eating. Be like, I'd get drunk and not care, and then I'd be sober and I would get such bad anxiety, and so I would just purge all the time. And so I think that kind of really played into why my body was so messed up. And so my mom started, paying for me to get vitamins, and so I started taking those, and I was pretty bad from a bulimic standpoint through my freshman year. And then after freshman year, I was having a lot of stomach problems. And, as someone who had, been suffering from eating disorders for years, at that point, it's pretty normal. But I went to the doctor and they were like, well, let's, kind of do a dietary test and see, we'll cut out all these foods and, see if that fixes the problem. And as we feed them back in, see what kind of pops up. So I cut out carbs, sugars, starches, and lactose. So sugar was refined sugar. I could still have fruit sugar. So that was good because I'm a big sugar fan. But so carbs, sugars, starches, and lactose. And I cut that out for the entire summer. And then going into my sophomore year, I started putting some of the food back in and figured out that I have a bad reaction to gluten. So I'm actually gluten-free at this point. So that summer though is, I feel like, when the real healing started, because I cut out all of those foods. I didn't feel bloated. I didn't worry about really what I was eating because most of it was greens. I feel like it kind of started to fix my microbiome, which for those who don't know, your microbiome has like a direct effect on like mood and things like that. It can really affect anxiety, depression, a lot of things. So I feel like by fixing that, I was kind of inadvertently helping with my eating disorders. So that summer is when I really started, I would say, full-fledged, like me being on board with my own recovery and also, feeling better and things like that. So that summer is when I really just like kind of made the decision that, we're gonna fight this full-fledged. And then figuring out that gluten, was a problem for me and my body, had a huge effect. So that year I also started working out consistently and, trying to hit the gym and get back into shape because my freshman year I just let loose. So, and that was when I started getting back into that lifestyle fitness. So I, fought pretty hard for, all of sophomore year. All of junior year was a struggle. And then senior year, it was, I would say, about, going into my third year of recovery, things started to get easier. And, I think that's the thing about it, is that you can't let up for 1 minute. Even now, I get anxiety about food and, things like that. I do have those moments, and it's not something that has left me, but it gets easier over time. So by my senior year, I had the eating thing under control for the most part. I was working out, but not that much. And my friend was like, hey, do you want to do Kayla Tsinas's BBG? And I was like, I don't know what that is, but sure. So we started the Bikini Body Guide. It was the ebooks back in the time. Now it's the Sweat app, whatever, which I think is a really great beginner starter guide to fitness because it's really spelled out. It's super easy to follow and to do. So started doing that, saw really good results, and kind of carried on doing that for probably a year and a half or so. I did it multiple times. And then I started my new job, and I was working for a sporting goods company. So, we had a gym in the office, things like that. So it was just, fitness was a part of the culture of the company. And so when I, started that job, it just really helped push me into just enjoying the lifestyle of being fit and eating healthy and things like that. And so, you know, that's kind of led me to where I am today. So I'm like, what? I think I'm like seven or eight. No, I'm 7 years into recovery now. So I am doing well. You know, there are some days that are better than others. And, you know, I'm still like fighting that fight and just working on building the body that I want, and, you know, but still enjoying life and enjoying food. And I'm by no means, you know, like a fitness model or anything like that, but it's just loving life and loving the journey. And I think that would be my like key takeaway, is that, you know, love the journey. And I look back and I feel like the struggles have made me who I am today. And, you know, on some level I'm like grateful for them, because I know that I'm strong and that I can overcome some serious struggles. So yeah. And recently, this is a bit of a side note, but it has, I think, played a huge effect, or had a huge eye-opening moment for me, because I was I don't know if anyone else is like this, but you like hear a TED Talk or something by someone that's inspiring, and then you just spiral and watch all their things and like just like eat up all the media. So I watched the Brene Brown documentary on Netflix, or talk or whatever on Netflix, and I had not heard of her. I had not seen her TED Talk or anything. And so then I just like went on this spiral of just like all the Brene Brown things that I could watch, I did. And I realized that I had been living my life in fear of shame. And that was where my perfectionistic complex came from, and really where my eating disorders stemmed from. If you think back to that, you know, to where it all started, it was because I was afraid of feeling ashamed about how I looked, and, you know, I didn't want to be criticized. And so that was super eye-opening, and I would recommend that to like everyone, because it's just made me look at things in a different way. And I feel like, you know, anytime you like learn new things, it's going to open your eyes and it's going to change your perspective. And so I feel like it has changed my perspective on some level. And so, you know, going forward, I'm aware of that. And so I'm able to kind of counteract that. And, you know, trying to think more positively, and, you know, kind of enter the arena and just go for things, and just try not to care as much what people think. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. For those of you who have watched it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I hope that this video has, you know, helped you in some way, helped you maybe realize something about yourself or anything. If you have any questions for me about any of my experiences or how I overcame things, you know, feel free to shoot me a message. I would love to, you know, answer any questions or anything like that. Yeah, so I hope you have the best day ever, and I will see you soon.